Hello and welcome back to this exclusive video tutorial series from linearcookie.com on modeling the M4 assault rifle. We're going to pick up back where we left off on the previous video and go in and work on the iron sights today, and if we have time we'll work on the barrel of the gun. So for the time being, let's go ahead and work on the iron sights. And what we first want to do is go ahead and just hit tab on our main mesh, select the iron sight pieces, and then just hit P to separate them out to a new object. We can then leave object mode by hitting tab, selecting the iron sights object, which while we're at it, let's just go ahead and name this. By just control clicking on it, we can just say M4 underscore iron sights. And then let's go ahead and hit Control Alt Shift C and recenter the origin to the geometry. This way we just have the origin point at the center of our mesh right here rather than all the way back here. Alrighty. Now what we're going to do is just go in and start adding in a bunch of extra detail on this to really pull it together. Now something that I would like to point out before we get too far along is that with the references that we provided, which are again all licensed under Creative Commons or public domain, we don't really have a good view of how the iron sights are constructed. Even through all the searching, we weren't able to find any that were very good in that regards. And so what I've done is gone ahead and collected a whole bunch of other references that I've got set up on my other monitor that unfortunately are not licensed under Creative Commons or public domain, and so we're not able to show them or just redistribute them. And so this is one of those cases where even with the references provided, I highly encourage you, if you're modeling along, to go ahead and dig through. Flickr in particular has some excellent high resolution references, Google Images and other resources to try and find all the images that you need and that will give the best angles of all the different parts of the model. So you've got to remember that since even though they're not necessarily licensed as Creative Commons, you can go ahead and use them as references for your work. You just simply can't reuse them in a commercial project or redistribute them or anything like that. And that's why our hands are kind of tied at this point. But what I'll do is, since I have these other references set up, I'll go ahead and use the current ones that we have as the base and then pull the detail from the others, which you'll be able to see replicated onto the model. So I encourage you to go out, gather some more references that you like, and go from there. So going back, let's go ahead and work on this. And what we're going to do is just hit tab to go into edit mode. And we want to just start doing a couple of things. First off, we want to improve the overall shape of this because it's not quite accurate. And so one thing that I want to do is first we want to get this rounded top on here. And I don't really like the way that the topology is flowing right now, because one general rule of thumb that I like to follow, particularly when using or when doing hard surface modeling, is to always have a face loop such as this here along the perimeter of all surfaces. So for example, since I have this shape that goes up through here, then curves around and then goes back down, I would like one continuous face loop going up, curving around, and then coming back down. And this does a couple things. One, it allows me to add in detail very easily, but it also keeps my edge flow under control, keeping it from getting too messy up in here, and allows me to add in extra sharpness to the ridges around this rounded form very easily. Because something that you'll notice is if I were to say add in a subdivision surface modifier, which we're going to do anyway, so I'll just do it now, and I want to sharpen up this face, well, if I add in an edge loop right here, it only sharpens up this edge and not right here. So I'm going to get this pinching here. But since I have this smooth rounded form, I don't want that. I want this edge loop to continue all the way down through around here to allow me to get that exact shape that I want. And so the way that we're going to do this, excuse me, is in vertex mode, or actually, no, in face mode. Let's go ahead and just select all of these faces. And we're just going to select them all through both sides, and we're going to hit X and delete faces. And actually, before we get too far along, let's go ahead and add in a mirror modifier to this. But before we do that, we need to go ahead and add in some edge loops so that we can delete half of this down the center. So let's just add in an edge loop right there. We can add in one right there. And remember, each time I just hit Control R, choose my cut, and then hit right mouse button to cancel the cut. Or excuse me, to cancel the transform, not the cut. You can see that goes through. And that all looks good. So now on these circles, rather than adding in another cut in the center of each one, since that would just distort our perfectly circular mesh, let's instead just go ahead and rotate these 15 degrees through the x-axis, which will then put this line directly in the center. So now, going back to vertex mode, I'll just select everything on the right side of the center line, and I can hit X and delete vertices. Now I just want to double check that everything looks good, and it does, and so I'll just go ahead and add in a modifier, mirror, and go ahead and move that up to the top and flip it around the y-axis rather than the x-axis. I can also go ahead and enable clipping to prevent any vertices from pulling away from the center. Okay, this will also just kind of lessen the amount of work that I have to do since I only have to do it once. And so to reconfigure this edge flow is actually going to be very easy. All we need to do is select these vertices right up here. We're going to hit E to extrude, take it down along the Z-axis by hitting Z, and then left click to confirm it, hit S to scale it in just a little ways, and then we can simply select these 4 vertices and these 4 vertices, and just like that, we've redirected our edge flow there to give us a much better result. And now I can go ahead and add in an edge loop here, and that would sharpen that up very nicely along the entire edge. But before I do that, I want to do some reshaping. And so for the reshaping, first off, I'm going to simplify this mesh to try and get rid of some of these edge loops. Even though I may need to re-add some of them back in, I would like to keep it a little simpler. So first I'm going to delete this edge loop. Or actually no, I'm going to delete both the ones on either side of it. I'll do the same thing down here, so I'm just alt-right clicking on one edge, hit X, delete the edge loop, and let's go ahead and, well, we'll keep those ones for the time being. Now we can go ahead and move these around to get our nice rounded form. Something about like that looks pretty close, maybe not quite rounded enough. So we'll take that up there, and that looks pretty good. Okay, we can go ahead and fill in some of these faces. And that fills really nicely, actually. You can see we need to add one in, or no, we don't need to add one in, we just need to select the other edge. Go. I'm going to pull that one back along the x-axis just to even it out. I'll take that one back to just straighten it up, and same thing here. So I'm just straightening up that edge. Okay, we can go ahead and we don't want to add in too many sharpening loops just yet because we want to go ahead and get our entire structure down. Excuse me. So what I want to go ahead and do now is, you'll notice that currently, these 3 pieces, let me just turn off my subdivision surface for the time being while in edit mode so we can really see this. This piece, and this piece are all currently the same width. But if we look at our other references, and we can kind of see it in this one, this piece up here looks to be the same thickness as this one here, but then this one here is only about half as wide as the other 2 pieces. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to add in an edge loop right through here, and we're going to take it into about right there. Something about like that should be good. And in fact, we can go ahead and take it in just a little bit further, which will then just sharpen up that edge. Then what we're excuse me, my throat's a little croaky right now. What we're going to do is let's go into face mode, and let's go ahead and delete these faces here, and we'll get these faces here. And then we also want to get this one right here. And we'll just hit X and delete faces. Because now we're going to go ahead and just select these faces. And let's go hit Control-Shift-Tab to switch into vertex snapping type. And we're going to hit E to extrude, and then just hold down Control and snap to that vertex right there. And that'll just immediately bring them out to be a little bit wider. And we can select everything, W, and remove doubles. This then creates the difference in the mesh that we want, where we've got this piece is wider than this piece. And actually we need to go ahead and re-delete these faces in here again. So let's just see if we can select them. And we'll just remove them once more. That's just an unfortunate part of the extrusion process. Okay, there we go, and we'll just hit X, delete those faces. Now everything is good to go. And the nice thing about this is we can go ahead and edit these as we wish. So let's maybe just go ahead and select these bits right here. And it looks like I actually deleted a face that I didn't mean to delete. And we'll just go ahead and take it out just a little bit further along the y-axis. Something about like that. Let's go ahead and switch into edge mode. We'll just select this edge and this edge. Oops, actually we've got several edges to do. There we are. Okay, and so with this, we're now pretty much ready to go ahead and start cutting in all of our other loops to add in the sharpening. So let's go ahead and switch into vertex mode. Let's re-enable our subdivision surface modifier. And first things first is let's go ahead and just add in some nice sharp loops. And first we'll go ahead and add one in right down here. We're going to take it all the way down to the bottom and then take it back up to be right about there. And then we're going to go ahead and do a loop on each side of it. So we'll do one right there, and then we're going to do two down here. So we'll hit Control R, scroll up ones, and scale this up. That sharpens that really nicely. Then we'll go ahead and add in one loop around this perimeter. Actually, no, we don't want to do that. We'll see if we can do it a different way, at least for the time being. Or actually, well, yeah, we'll think about that in just a second. Let's go ahead and add one in right here. We'll bring this over to be about right there. We'll take this one down. We can go ahead and take this one up. We'll take this one up. It starts strapping up nicely. We'll go ahead and add one in along the perimeter there. And we'll add one in. We've got this one already, all nice and sharp. Let's add one in through here. Maybe we'll select that loop portion of the loop, and we're going to slide it over. Let's just Control E and edge slide. Do the same thing there. Although this piece up here is actually a lot softer than the areas around it. And so I'm going to select just those three vertices and slide them back in just to round that off a little bit. In fact, we'll go ahead and take the other ones as well. Take them back. Just to leave that sort of rounded. Let's go and select everything, W, and shade smooth. You see we need to hit Control N to recalculate the normals down here. And since they're unnecessary, let's go ahead and just select the bottoms here and hit X and delete faces. That'll just keep those nice and sharp. And you'll notice we need to maybe move some, or let's add in some edge loops. I'm going to go ahead and delete this circle here because we're going to go ahead and we'll just duplicate this one over. And so I'm going to add in an edge loop, but I'm going to immediately right click and then I'm going to hit G and X and snap to, I want to snap to this vertex right there. I'll snap that up together nicely and keep this nice edge going. We'll do the same thing right over here. Although we don't actually have a vertex to snap to, so we'll just basically approximate it. And that looks pretty good. We can go ahead and really we want to bring these faces down a little bit. So let's go ahead and select this whole bottom area. And then I'll hit Shift L with my mouse over the circle to deselect it. And we're going to take this up just a little bit, about like that. And then we're going to select this area right in here. And we're going to hit E to extrude and take it down to that vertex. We'll select everything, W, and remove doubles. And then we need to just go in and remove these interior faces. Hit X and remove faces. And you can see we've got an extra vertex in here. I'm going to select the circle, hit H to hide it. So this vertex will just snap to right there. and remove doubles on that. And looks like it didn't quite remove, so we'll just hit X, delete the vertex, and there we go. We can go ahead and delete those faces again. We'll hit Alt-H, bring that back, and let's go ahead and hit Control-R, add in another loop right in there just a little bit. In this area, we ought to technically bring it down so it merges with that, and in fact, we can do that real quick. So what I'll do, just grab these vertices, leaving the edge ones. We'll hit G and Z, pull it up. Just take these one at a time. Notice I'm only doing the outside right now, and then I'll switch over to the other side, and we'll pull them back down. And we don't technically need to do this since it's going to be hidden, but it's good practice anyway. Okay. And maybe we'll go ahead and slide this along the y-axis and then take it up to ensure that as well. On this, let's go ahead and remove the interior edges. We'll just hit X, select the faces, X, remove faces. There we go. Now let's go ahead and we'll select this side, and we're going to hit Shift D, and then go G to X, or G and then X to snap along the X-axis, and we're just going to snap right to that vertex. And that'll move that over perfectly. We can go ahead and do the same thing here. We'll pull these up. And there we are. Again, not necessary, but it helps to get a cleaner idea of what we're looking at for the final piece. And this is looking pretty good. We're not going to take this a whole lot further. Although one thing I noticed is that these pieces here are actually going to be turned out a little bit. So let's add in one more edge loop right here. And we're going to hit S, Z, and 0 to scale it to 0 along the Z axis. And then let's go ahead and let's center our cursor right here by hitting Shift S and cursor to selection. And then we'll go ahead and select this whole area, hit period to scale around the 3D cursor, or you can select it right down here. And let's just rotate this out just a little bit. There we go. So now we just have a slight curve to that, like we can see in the references if you look real close. And what we want to go ahead and do now is we're going to create these bottom sections of this piece. Well, actually, I'm going to add in one more edge loop right through here to sharpen that up about like that. Okay, there we go. And you can see we're getting a slight pinching right here. So I'm going to select this, hit W, and smooth just a couple times. Pull that back along the X-axis maybe. And there we go. Okay, so we're going to do these pieces down here. And I know that you can't really see them in this reference. And this is the prime case where you want to go ahead and find some other references to work with in order to create this semi-accurately. But I've already got those references on hand, so I'm going to go ahead and use them. And what we first want to do is to select these areas here. And we're just going to hit E to extrude. Basically, we've got a little piece down here that's going to be two small hinge that then you're able to attach a bracket to that could be for a shoulder strap or some other accessory. And so we're just going to hit E to extrude, take it down along the Z axis a little bit, and then let's hit S, Z, and 0, although first you'll notice we're scaling towards the 3D cursor. So let's hit comma to scale back towards the individual center, and hit S, Z, and 0, scale it down to 0 just to flatten that out. Take it down a little further, make sure we're not on top of this vertex, and then we're going to go ahead and extrude it down a little bit further to about right there. And that'll be about the total width that we're going to bring it down. And what I'm going to go ahead and do now is we want to round this off from the side view. And so I'm just going to add in 3 edge loops right here. And we'll then just take these up a little bit at a time. About like that. And go ahead and take these up. Although actually we're not going to take those up because what we're going to do is, if you remember, I said I like to keep face loops around the perimeters. And so what we want to do is to extrude this to keep this face loop that you can see right here. We want to bring this down like this. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select these faces, hit E to extrude, take it down along the Z-axis, maybe scale along the X-axis just a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and select these faces, hit X, delete faces, Control-Tab, switch to vertex mode. Let's just select these two, snap them to that vertex, snap them to that vertex. Remember, we're still in vertex snapping. Select everything, W, remove doubles, and just like that, we now have this perimeter face loop. So we can maybe go ahead and rotate or bring these down just a little bit. Maybe we'll bring this up a little. Let's go ahead and add in another edge loop here, but I want this to be perfectly straight, and so I could either go ahead and add it in here, then hit S, Z, and go to 0, or I can save a step, hit Control R, go all the way to the top where my line's already flat, and then take it back down along the Z-axis just like that. And you can see now I need to maybe go ahead and round this out a bit more. That looks pretty good. This is maybe a little pointy right now. Okay, there we go. I'm liking the look of that. And so what we want to go ahead and do now is to punch a couple holes in it. For one, this should not actually be solid all the way through. We in fact want this to be a hole here. So let's go ahead and select these faces just like that. We're going to hit X, delete the faces. We'll select this side here, and let's just hit Shift D and snap over to there. We'll select everything, W, and remove doubles. And then we can select these edges, hit E to extrude, snap to right there, select everything, W, remove doubles, then Control N to remove the black spots, and just like that, we're good to go. So now all we need to do is add in another edge loop and take it up to right about there, and now we have a very nice double piece coming down. What we want to go ahead and do now is a couple of things. First off, I actually just realized that I did this almost completely wrong, and in fact what we want to do is we want to bring these pieces in further, and we want a ridge right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this whole piece, and we're going to select this piece, and we're going to hit G and Y and snap to right there, and that will just pull those in. And then let's deselect this piece, and we're going to pull this in along the Y-axis a bit more, about like that. And then let's go ahead and add in, let me just think about this for a second, on the best way to do this. Let's go ahead and add in, we could either add an edge loop there, or we could add 2 edge loops. Let's see. Yeah, let's just go ahead and add in an edge loop here. We're going to take it all the way down and then bring it back up, and that will just snap to right there. We could go ahead and select this vertex and this vertex, pull them back up along the center there. There we go. That'll just keep it nice and clean. And then maybe we'll go ahead and add in, yeah, that's right. Let's add a nice angle like that. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. So we're going to go ahead and leave that like that, although we're going to bring these in just a little bit more. We'll just take them along the Y-axis, maybe bring these back down a little bit. There we are. Okay, and so now what I'm going to go ahead and do is we're going to put a pin through here, which would essentially be a cotter pin of sorts. And so I'm going to just select this vertex right here, Shift S, cursor to selection, and we're going to hit Shift A, add mesh, and let's go ahead and just add in a circle. This circle, let's just hit F6, and we're going to take it down to 6 vertices, and then we'll scale it way, way down. Let's go ahead and rotate it 15 degrees, and what that'll do is just keep our straight sides right here. So we'll just scale this down to be about right there, take it out along the Y-axis a little bit. We can hit Alt-F and then Alt-J to fill that with triangles and then convert them to quads. Let's hit E to extrude, take it out a little bit along the normal. We'll scale out along the normal, snap right to that vertex, scale out a little bit. Let's take it back along the Y-axis, take it in one more time, and that will then create basically a pan head for the pin. Select everything, remove doubles, or we didn't remove doubles, we want to shade smooth. There we go. And technically this isn't going to be correct, because technically this should go through and then there'd be basically a splayed out pin right here. So it's essentially a rivet going through, but we're not going to worry about that for the time being. That's something that we can do kind of in, I'll say, post-production modeling, where we go back in and just kind of tweak our final details. But for the time being, while we're still laying out all the main details, we're going to go ahead and leave that as is. But we will go ahead and select this last surface. We're going to hit E to extrude, scale it in a little bit, scale it in a little bit. And remember, for each time you do that, since there's faces, when we hit E to extrude, it immediately sets it along the normal. So we first need to right-click, then we can hit S to scale, and then left-click to confirm, and then go ahead and do it again. And then we're just going to take this through just a little bit, and then we'll take it on through to the center, hit X, and delete face. And remember, when we have the clipping option enabled, it'll just lock right to the center. Now what we want to do is to create, this whole pan head is a little small, and so I'm just going to go ahead and hit period to scale around the cursor, which is already set to this surface. So I can just scale this up, and it scales perfectly to be right about like that. There we go, that looks much better. And so now what I'm going to do is we want to create this inside face, and I'm going to do this by hitting Shift A to add in, or actually we're going to go ahead and select this, hit Shift S, cursor to selection, and then let's hit Shift A, add in a circle. We're going to hit F6 to bring up our properties panel, and let's do 12 vertices, and then we'll just scale this down. And this looks just about right. We're going to scale it down to be just a little smaller than our entire barrel. So if we hit Alt-H in object mode, we can see that this piece right here is just about that size. We're going to take it down to about right there. That looks about right. And then let's go ahead and select the top piece here. And we actually only want this selected, so we'll deselect that. Hit S, Z, and 0, although we want to scale to our individual centers, not the cursor. So we'll hit S, Z, and 0. And then let's select this side, hit S, Z, and 0, and then we're going to go ahead and hit E to extrude. We'll scale it in a little bit, and then let's scale down a little extra along the Z axis to just even out these faces. And then let's go ahead and we'll scale this, or take it from the side view. Let's take it out along the X axis to be, we'll go ahead and make it the same width as this piece right here, and then extrude, snap along the X-axis to right there, and that'll be about right. Let's go ahead and bring the interior in just a little bit, so we'll scale, excluding the X-axis, so we'll hit S and Shift-X, bring it in, and maybe bring it in a little extra along the Z-axis right there, and that looks good. I'm going to select the whole thing. We're going to take it down along the Z-axis to just about right here. Let's go and select everything and W and shade smooth. Control N to fix the normal issues. Let's go and add in an edge loop, or 2 edge loops there, 2 edge loops there. Or actually, no, we don't want to do 2 there. What we want to do is just remove this side. So we'll select it, X, delete vertices. We'll grab this edge loop, pull it in along the Y-axis to there. We'll leave that where it's at. And then this side, what we're going to do is we're going to bring it in along the Y-axis to right about there. Then we're going to hit E to extrude, take it up. We're going to rotate it such that it's perfectly flat, just about right there. And then we can go ahead and just get the last little bit by hitting S, Z, and 0. And maybe we need to hit S and X to bring it in, or Y to bring it along the Y-axis just a little bit. Take it up to about right there. Then hit E to extrude, take it up, and then we'll hit F to fill in a face. Basically what we're doing is creating a bracket here. We want to go ahead and refine that a little bit, so let's go and add in another edge loop right here. We're going to bring it real close to that, because then we're going to take this one, we're going to take this along the Y-axis to there, then we'll take this along the Z-axis just a little bit, and we'll go ahead and snap it along the Y-axis to right there as well. And maybe we'll just snap that right to there just to round that out a little bit. Okay, and what I want to go ahead and do now is we're going to add in 2 edge loops here, which then will scale along the X-axis just to round this out. So we're basically creating a rounded pin, and something about like that. And this is pretty nice and rounded like it is, but what I'd like to do is let's go ahead and select this face here. We'll hit E to extrude, scale it in just a little bit, And let's do the same thing on this side. And that will just sharpen up those two pieces. If we go ahead and select this, hit Shift H, we can hide everything else. And let's go ahead and maybe just make this a little more circular. Scale it along the x-axis. We'll deselect these pieces. There we go. That looks a bit better. And we'll bring this up, hit S, Shift or Z to 0, and just make sure we've got a nice ridge there. And that looks pretty darn good. So we'll save that, and we're making really good progress here. Just notice one thing is that maybe this edge is far too sharp. So let's hit Control E, edge slide. And maybe we'll slide that one along too. Something that you'll notice on this is that none of these pieces, at least on the iron sights, are perfectly sharp. You know, most of them are slightly rounded. And so we don't have too many really sharp edges on it like we do on other pieces of the gun. You know, it's more molded. And so we want to be sure that we don't overdo some of the sharp areas. Okay, now we need to go ahead and do the front piece here. And the front piece is going to be fairly simple. It's basically going to be a couple pieces. So it's first going to be this same kind of thing. So we're going to select these faces again. Oh, we'll just do this with the vertices instead. It's a little easier. There we go. We're going to hit E to extrude, right click to cancel that, and then we're going to take it down along the Z axis, S, Z, and 0. Now we're not going to go down quite as far. Well, actually, no, we'll go down about the same distance, be right about there. We'll go and add another edge loop, take it down to the bottom, and then take it back up. Then we'll go in and we'll select these two vertices, take them up along the Z axis to even that out. And then we want to go ahead and we're going to just add in with our cursor centered right about this. We're going to just, actually, no, instead, we're just going to select this piece here. And in fact, why don't we just go ahead and select, yeah, we'll just do this one edge. We're going to hit Shift D, right click, and then we're just going to scale it up along the x-axis just a little bit, bring it in to be about up there. Deselect that side, and we're going to take it over to be just about there. Let's select the whole thing. We'll hit E to extrude, take it down to about there. Let's add in 2 edge loops, which will scale up there, and then we'll add in 2 edge loops here, scale them out along the x-axis, and then finally we'll add in 1 edge loop here and bring that out there. And so they very quickly just made a very sharp, nice box. We can maybe bring this up to merge with that a bit better, about like there. And then what we want to do is let's add in some nice rounding to this. We're going to add in first an edge loop right about here. In fact, let's just snap it over to right about there. And then we'll just add in 3 edge loops there. And we're going to take this down just a little bit like that. And we're going to go ahead and slide these together and bring them over. Something about like that looks good. We'll add in an extra edge loop there to ensure that stays nice and sharp. And then I'm going to go ahead and round off this corner by just bringing that over. And in fact, let's take this edge loop all the way to here. That just rounds that off pretty nicely. And to clean up the mesh a little bit, we can take this, pull it back along the x-axis, take this back up along the z, and that just ensures that's nice and smooth. Okay. And really, I would like to see this face loop continue on down through there, but I'm not going to worry about that for the time being since this is such a minor piece. We'll go and add in an edge loop right through here. We'll put it right about the center, hit S, Z, and 0, and let's take it down. And then what I want to do is we're just going to select this piece. We're going to take it back to be right about there. We'll take this one, slide it up to about there, and then we're going to add in another edge loop right through here, because what we're going to do then is just select these faces, these surface faces here, And then we're just going to extrude them. Oops, I forgot one. We're going to extrude them out to be right about there. Add in an edge loop there. And that helps to create that extra piece that we can see in there, although we need to go ahead and once more smooth out this piece. So I'm going to first select this vertex, pull it back along the x-axis, and let's switch into increment mode. We'll pull it back 1 unit. We'll take this up 1 unit, and then we can take this back each way as well. And we'll go ahead and take this up a little bit like that. Actually, we're going to undo both of those, and we're just going to take these back together like that. That will just round off that front shape like it appears to be in the references that I can see. Okay, and finally we want to go ahead and extrude the other piece on it, and so we're going to do that by extruding this piece here, although we want to deselect our center vertices and these edge vertices here, and then we're going to go ahead and extrude it out, and we'll go ahead and go to this vertex, snap to right there. Oops, although we want to snap just to the y-axis, and then we can add in another loop, and then we're going to select this whole bottom piece right here, and we're going to extrude it down to be about right there. This is this piece right in here. We'll add in, well, we don't need to worry about the other loop. We're going to keep this nice and rounded, so we'll just take this over along the x-axis right about like that. And then we want to add in a cut right in here. So we're going to add in 3 edge loops, which then we'll be able to pull this in along the x-axis right about like that. Maybe we'll scale those up along the z-axis a little bit, make them a little more rounded. We'll maybe just kind of average these out, get a little bit more of a circular form there. Bring some of these over with it. And there we go. So there's that piece as well. Although one last little bit that we want to do is to add in, and actually it looks like I've made this a little bit too large. So let's go ahead and select this whole piece. We're going to hit S, Y, and we're just going to scale it in towards the 3D cursor. And we want to scale the whole thing in to be about, about right there actually. That looks pretty good. And yeah, we'll just go ahead and leave that as is, although maybe this whole thing is a little bit too tall. We'll just pull that up like that. Maybe this whole thing is a little bit too wide. Okay, there we are. So we'll go ahead and save that. And the last thing that I want to do for small details is we're going to select this pin. We're going to hit Shift D to duplicate it. We're going to take it up. We're going to pull it out along the y-axis. We're going to snap it right to that vertex. And then we're going to select this vertex and this vertex. Shift S, cursor to selected. Select this, period, and we're going to scale it down. We're going to scale it down to about half its size. So we'll hit S and 0.5 to scale that down. Since it's much smaller, we don't need quite so many edge loops on it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this interior edge loop. And we'll go ahead and delete this edge loop as well. Then let's go ahead and take these. We'll delete that one also. And we actually don't need this center line at all. So we'll remove it, and we'll remove that. We'll take this. We're going to take it out along the y-axis a little bit more. There we go. And then we're just going to duplicate it over to this piece here. So we'll just take it over along the x-axis, snap it to right about there. There we go. Just those last couple little pieces of detail. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to save our file, and we're making really good progress. Yes, we still have quite a ways to go, but that's okay. We're we're doing good. And actually, something I just realized, let me double check through looking at some of my other references real quick here. Yeah, the iron sights actually has a slight taper on it. And so if we want to just taper this lightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my this piece here. Let's just select this, Shift H, and we're going to do the interior of each of these circles, Shift S, cursor to selection, and then we're going to hide these pieces. We're going to hide these, and in fact, we'll go ahead and we're going to select this top piece here. From the side view, we're going to turn our proportional editing tool, and let's first just hit period to scale towards the cursor, hit S and Y, scale it in just a little bit, just about like that. Just give a very slight taper to it. And maybe we'll do just a little bit more about like that. Okay, there we go. That looks good. Unhide everything, and we're going to call it quits here at 41 minutes, and we will see you on the next part.